Good morning, everyone. Hi, jewelry makers. It's Tracy at Tiara Cast. Hopefully, you guys can see me and everything's streaming properly. You never know. It's our regular Tuesday demo live stream. Hi, Carrie. Thank you for popping in. That lets me know that someone sees me. So we have, well, it's still summer. And actually, here in Northern California, we're getting some nice summer weather, even slightly hot, but that's okay because so much of our summer here where we are, we're not too far from the ocean and north of San Francisco. And we've been having a kind of coolish summer, so which is fairly normal. It kind of depends. In recent summers, we've had like crazy heat waves. But this summer has been fairly cool, and we're finally getting some real warm weather, and we're enjoying it. So there's still some summer. So I thought it would be fun to demonstrate what I have named our Summertide earrings. And I just like that name. I like that name when I created them, and I made them a long time ago. But I like it because they're so bright and kind of festival friendly. Don't you think that these would be great for wearing to an outdoor summer concert? Just bright, they're swingy, they have a lot of movement. Let me bring in my other camera because that way you can kind of see my work mat at the same time, and see if I can switch things up a little bit. Let's see if this one works. I am using, playing with the different screens that you can get, the different views you can use in StreamYard. Haven't really got the hang of it all that great yet, but I like that if I come in, instead of just switching cameras within the stream, like using two cameras, if I come in with my phone camera as a guest, then I can show both at the same time. So it's fun. I've been playing with that the last couple of weeks. So Summertide earrings, I like them very much. They're very simple. And I actually had a couple of variations in mind. Since it's still summer, I thought it might be fun to do a very kind of ocean themed version. So I'm going to use our tiny little sea star charms for that. And then, because fall is coming, it's not here yet, but it's coming, I thought it might be fun to do a kind of a fall themed one. So I've got our tiny little oak leaf charms for that. And so, of course, and what I'm thinking is this one is a very colorful design. It's not an ombre. I'm never quite sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's not an ombre design. It's just a combination of wonderful colors. But I really wanted to play with the idea of ombre with these two. So that's my intention. Going to see how it goes. So with these earrings, they are just simply strung on beading wire. A heavy or a medium beading wire is best, so that the teardrop will hold its shape. And then the charms need to be quite small. Otherwise, it's going to add too much weight. And then they're finished by just crimp beads up here at the top. So I've got a bunch of, sorry, excuse the reach. I've got some medium beading wires. They are perfectly good for this. I also have some of the really colorful ones that Softlex has. So I'll figure out what I'm going to use here soon. You can also use a heavy beading wire. You can get a real heavy beading wire, both Beadalon and Softlex, and I'm sure other beading wire makers have a heavy. But the trick with that is you need to make sure that whatever crimp tube you're using, the two passes of that beading wire are going to fit to that crimp tube. Because see, you have to do a traditional crimp, come up and then come back to the crimp tube. So if you choose to use a heavy beading wire, make sure that you're going to be able to fit two passes of that in the crimp tube. So I'm going to throw in a link to the project because that does give you a part list. It tells you everything you need to make these earrings. So that's also up in the description at the top of the video. So I am curious about, it looks to me like this bead-a-lawn heavy is quite a bit heavier than the soft flex. I'm interested in seeing if I actually can do 2 passes of the heavy beading wire in our crimp tubes. Our crimp tubes are a 2 by 2 millimeter. So they're quite small. They're great for fine beading wire, great for medium. Not sure about the heavy. Let's see. Because then the point with the medium or the heavy beading wire is that then the teardrop really holds its shape. And if you're using heavy, maybe you could even go with a heavier charm. You'd have to test it and see about the weight. And I don't think so. I think that the heavy is just a little bit too thick for our crimp tube. So you would need to make sure, like I said, whatever crimp tubes you're using, you know, crimp tubes are widely available. You're not, oh, okay, made myself a liar. You can fit 2 strands in there. Can you guys see this? Come on, focus. You can get that through there. It's just coming out a tiny, there you go. Yay. So yay, you can use the heavy. But obviously it's fussy. You gotta wiggle it to make it fit. So I'm just gonna abandon the heavy and go right back to the medium. And part of that is because I want to use the colors. So, but it was fun to test that to see if that heavy wire will work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a demo of the actual Summertide pattern because they're so quick and easy. This length, this strand makes an earring about 3 inches long. So you could, of course, adjust your bead count and make them a little bit shorter. Hello, Leslie. Nice to see you. Hi, Andrea. Nice of you guys to pop in and join me today. This is, you know, not everybody likes to work with seed beads, but these are size 6 seed beads, so they're quite big. If you're a new person to seed beads, this kind of project, you're just stringing, you're not weaving, so it's very easy, very beginner friendly. So my original ones are just a gray beading wire, so I'll stick with that just to demonstrate that original design. The strand of wire is just about 5 inches long, so I'm going to cut myself about 7 inches of beading wire. I'm not going to be leaving long tails with this. So I don't need a whole lot of extra. The first thing I'm going to do is just make a loop at one end and crimp it. So in my original design, I just flattened the crimps. And that's kind of a designer's choice. You can flatten it, or you could do the traditional crimp with the traditional crimping pliers. And I think I'm actually going to demonstrate that with one of the second pairs. And then, so I just flattened that. And there's a tiny little tail, but that will just cover up with the, beads, because all these beads have quite large, roomy holes. So the tail will fit right down in there nicely. If you are someone who strings a lot, let's get some of the stuff out of the way so we can get up into a nice area of the. If you're someone who strings a lot and works with beading wire, you know that sometimes you want to thread your wire back through some beads for some security. And that can be tricky depending on the size of your bead holes. So when the beads have roomy holes, that's nice. It makes it easier. So I'm just picking up, the pattern is a I really didn't talk that much about our what we're actually using to make these. I mentioned size 6 seed beads, of course. I mentioned small charms. I mentioned crimp tubes, and the other thing, and of course we talked about the beading wire. The other thing that you need is some small spacers, and what I'm using for this particular design is the 3mm disc spacers that we have, and the daisy spacers. And I'm going to put some more links here. One of them is a search. Unfortunately, we don't have a little category on the website of small charms, but you can do a search for small charms. So that ugly link I just put in there is will bring you up smaller charms. And then I'm also putting a link into our spacer beads. So good place to look for the stuff that we're using for this design. So now what I'm doing is just following, I'm picking up the beads in the pattern. I've fortunately got this one right here laid out, so that makes it easy to follow along. And it is pretty quick, but stringing takes time. It just does. And please feel free to leave comments and questions. I will hopefully see them and be able to respond. Hello, Sabrina, and a visitor from Puerto Rico. I didn't catch the name, though. It went so fast. Karen. Hi, Karen. Karen Lewis is Clues Beads, and she's a good friend of ours. And it's nice to see you, Karen. Artisan Vero, greetings from Puerto Rico. Nice to see you. Yeah, leave me questions. If I don't catch them while we're live, then I will go through the comments and respond later, answer any questions you might have. So I'm just going along and following the pattern. And when I get down to the center, I'm going to pick up, I'll finish with a seed bead and one of the disc spacers. So far the pattern has been disc, daisy, disc, seed bead, disc, daisy, disc, seed bead. When I get down to the bottom, I'm only going to string one of those discs, and then I'm going to grab my charm. And then another disc. So I'm skipping the daisy in favor of the charm for the center. And then I'm just going to do the whole darn thing on the other side. Okay. What I like about this technique is just such a simple one, but you have such a wide array of seed bead. And you can do this with you can do this with fire polish, check glass beads. Whoops, I got an extra disc there. You could do this with a lot of different beads. You'd want to be careful with gemstones, I guess, because they might get kind of heavy for the design, in weight, I mean. And again, if you want your little teardrop to hold its shape, the lighter materials are important for that. You start using really heavy beads and big heavy charms, then your teardrop's going to get a little droopy. And of course, that's when you could work with the heavier, test out the heavier beading wire. I might have been over ambitious. I'm thinking, these are so quick. I can probably do a few different designs while we're live, but I wasn't thinking about how long it takes to just string beads. Okay, I'm looking pretty good. Before I put that second crimp on, I'm going to double check my pattern and make sure I didn't foul it up anywhere. And you can see that because I didn't need a lot of wire when I crimped this side, that 7 inches was plenty long. That 2 extra inches of wire is plenty to work with. I have learned over the years that you just don't want to short yourself with your beading wire when you're stringing something, because when it comes time to do the crimping, if you don't have enough crimping wire, beading wire to hold on to while you're trying to do that, it just makes things difficult. So don't short yourself. Don't short yourself with your beading wire. I try to be frugal because, it's a valuable beading material, costs money. But yeah, don't short yourself. Okay, so I'm getting my crimp bead into place, and I do want to make sure that my beads aren't too tight. I need them all to take up the space on the beading wire. I don't want to crimp it too loosely, but I also want to make sure that there's room for them to move. So you don't want to pull this so tight that then your beads don't have room to move. And this looks pretty good. I have a little bit of space up here, so I probably should adjust that a tiny bit. But again, not too much, because I want those to be able to move. And then I'm going in with my chain nose pliers and this flattening that again. Then I can go in and trim. And the last thing I need to do is just choose an ear wire. Oh, okay. Something else that, well, it's kind of optional. I don't know if you guys have done this. I demonstrated it not too long ago. Sometimes, depending on how your earrings are going to hang, an option is to take your, and this is for a French hook or whoops, I lost it. Where'd it go? For a kind of traditionally shaped ear wire, you can turn this loop. So if I wanted to turn that and then put the wire, the bead strand on here, it would change the way it hangs. So that's just a little something to consider when you're making earrings. If it's not hanging the way you want it to, that's an option. It's really not necessary for this design, but people's ears are shaped different, and you might have holes, your pierced ears, your ears might face quite forward, and some people's will face more against their head. So just something to remember. You can do that. You can change the direction of the loop on your ear wire to change the way the earring hangs. So that's that. That is a pretty simple little easy design to put together. And that's the original. So let's get some of all of this stuff out of the way and start playing with maybe the kind of sea-themed one that I've been dreaming about. I've been just imagining this one, a variation in this kind of theme. So this will take us a little more time because we do need to come up with our pattern. I think I'm going to stick with pretty much the spacer and seed bead pattern so that we're not stuck here all day while I hem and haw and decide what I want to do. 7 inches approximately of beading wire will be enough. I'm choosing this. This is a medium, and it's Soft Flex's colors. I love them. They're just so fun to work with. And so this is a nice bright blue. Excuse me. Thought that might be nice for a sea-themed one. And I think I should lay these out a little bit and kind of see what I might want to do. And I need to keep, maybe I'll keep this strand that's not connected to an ear wire, because that handy so I can see it, because that will kind of remind me, okay, if I want it to be about the same length, what do I want to do with the beads? And I want this, remember, to be more of an ombre kind of kind of pattern, then and I want the ombre to be at the bottom, I think, right? I mean, I'm sorry, I want the dark beads to be at the bottom. So I'll start with the lighter ones. And I'm using a head pin just because I'm playing with the pattern. And so I can pick up the beads quicker. So I'm thinking maybe 2 of the light ones up at the top. And this is just going to give me an idea of what the pattern might look like. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I will, of course, do the actual stringing on the beading wire. So 2 of the light blue, 2 of the medium blue. I'm going to run out of head pin here in a minute. And then I'll end up with 3 of the dark blue at the bottom, I guess. And that'll work, I think. I think I might. I pulled out my my bucket of I pulled out my bucket of seed beads in all the various colors, of course, because I wanted to see, okay, what's going to look best. And I didn't really have as much in the blue ranges as I would have liked, but I think this will be okay. Linda is popping in and saying hello from Denver, North Carolina. Not Denver, Colorado, but Denver, North Carolina. I also have some other lighter blue seed beads, but I think they're too light. They're too close in color to these 2 up here. So I'm just going to have to work with what I got. I think that in a perfect world, I might have gone to the bead store and just bought a bunch of seed beads. But did not have time for that. So this is gonna work for me. This will be 3 of the darker blues at the bottom, and then the little sea star charm, and then the same pattern on the other side. So I need to put my crimp tube on this side. And so, we were talking a little bit at the beginning about crimping and how with the original design, I just flattened my crimps because I just kind of wanted them to be clean for the design. But you can also, come on, slide up there a little further. You can also use traditional crimping pliers. And then what'll be fun to do with that is to demonstrate how to put a crimp cover over that. Because the crimped bead is not the prettiest thing. So crimp covers are nice to finish that off with. So we'll do the traditional crimpers with this pair and finish them off with crimp covers. That'll be a good additional demo. All right, so I'm going to start following the pattern that we laid out. We're getting messy. Let me clean up a little bit. I'm going to take these off of the head pin. And I'll start stringing that pattern onto my bead strand that I've prepared. Are we going to have time to get to the fall one? I don't know. Something else to consider while you're working with seed beads, pretty much any seed beads, is that there can be size variation in the beads. So I'm noticing here with these little light colored ones that some of them are quite skinny. They're skinny little beads. So I'm avoiding those because I want them to have the beads on the strand to be more consistent. So I'm just culling a little bit as I go. This is pretty. I like the little bit of gold in there, brightens everything up. Trying to get my beading wire covered by that first spacer. And then this kind of more medium blue. This is a very cobalty blue. It's very pretty. And that's 2 of those. And I could, you know, something else we mentioned. Elise is saying sorry she's late. Elise, we don't keep a time clock here. You can rewatch this. And Debbie, same for you. She's just joining and asking if she's missed a lot. You can catch up. We already demonstrated the original design, and now we're doing a variation. I am using a kind of ombre effect with the with some blue seed beads, so I can do kind of a sea themed version for this one. And at the beginning, we talked a little bit about the length of the strand and how long the earrings are, and how you could shorten that, you know, if you wanted. And so I think that's what I'm going to do here, because that way I'll have 2 of the light blue, 2 of the medium blue, and 2 of the dark blue. So I'm going to shorten this whole pattern by 1 repetition. And here's something that's popping up that I didn't think about. It's a really good thing that to point out. Some of our beads, our charms, have what we call, this is funny, this came up in last week's demo too. Some of our charms have loops that are in line, you know, on the same plane as the charm itself, and some of them are what we call opposed loops. So they sit perpendicular to the surface of the charm. And those are fun because you can string them right onto something. And then, you know, sometimes you have to add jump rings if you are doing something else with it besides just stringing it onto material. And then the other charms are, you know, just traditional. You need to add a jump ring there to get it onto your design. So I didn't think about that when I was setting up, and I forgot to have jump rings prepared. So I'm just going to attach one of our small round jump rings. And then I can string it on there. It's also good to remember, this will come into play when we're adding the ear wire, that these little sea stars are 2-sided. They're like kind of genuine. There actually are many of our sea-themed parts. We used actual little shells, etc., to make the original casting. So this was once upon a time, its ancestor was an actual little sea star. So let's see. I think I'm confusing myself with the pattern because we're changing it a little bit. So I'm just trying to keep on top of what I'm doing here. Okay, I'm liking this. I think this is coming out nice. I'm noticing something here is that my jump ring is hopping over my spacers, because those are small spacers. So once I'm ready to crimp on this side, I'm going to want to pay attention to that and make sure it's in the right spot. Once you got the pattern, you know, kind of in your head, it's an easy one. You can just kind of get into the mode and start stringing. Debbie, yes, this what I'm using right now is their colored, Soft Flex's colored ear wire, beading wire, which I adore. There's just so many wonderful colors, and they're medium weight, so they work well with this design because you do want a medium or heavy beading wire for this project so that the teardrop holds its shape a little better than if you were using a fine beading wire. So the colorful soft flex, the colors work real well for this project. So I'm at the end of my pattern, and I just want to fold it up and make sure that I didn't miss anything and didn't skip any beads. And these ones are going to be just a wee bit shorter because we've skipped one of the repetitions of the seed beads. So probably going to take about a ½ inch off of the whole thing. We'll see once we get it crimped. We'll see how long they hang. And again, I don't want everything strung too tightly. I want my beads to have a little bit of room to move. And I'm going to test that before I actually do the crimping. And for those who weren't here, with the original design, we did just chain nose pliers and we flattened the crimp tube. But for this one, I'm using crimping pliers so that I can actually demonstrate how to put crimping tubes, crimp covers over those when we're all done with the design. So rear notch for the original crimp, front notch to kind of curve that up and around. Pull on it just to make sure. I should have done that before I actually curved it, but it feels like it's pretty secure. It's always good to test that, and, to make sure that your crimp is actually secure before you finalize things, to make sure that it's going to stay put together. I think I'm going to go ahead and add it to, I was trying to decide when the best time is to put the crimp covers on, and I think now. I think it'll make it a little tight to work in the space if I go ahead and add it to the ear wire first. So I'll do it before we put it on the ear wire. So a crimp cover, if you haven't used one before, it's a tiny little curved component that is flexible. So you fit it over, you use the front notch of your crimping pliers, and you fit it over a crimp bead. And ours are about 3 millimeter diameter. They're made to fit our crimp tubes perfectly. You'll find other sizes and variations out there. So I set that little crimp cover into the front notch of these crimping pliers, and now I've placed it over the crimp tube, and I'm just gently kind of squeezing until I get that closed nicely. These can be tricky, and you do want to go slow because that gets you, if you squeeze too hard, then the crimp cover gets misshapen. It's better to go very slow and kind of coax it into place. I get better results that way with crimp covers. So again, got my little crimp cover in the front notch of my pliers, placing it over the crimp tube and just gently closing it. It's like a little, they remind me of pill bugs, roly-polies. Just curl them around. Unfortunately, I can never remember. Yeah, Elise, thank you. These are also called a clamshell. And I can never remember the actual name of roly-polies, that's what we call them here. You may call them something else. We're in your area, because vernaculars. All right, so I've got everything in place, and now I'm just going to thread those ends onto an ear wire. And oh, this is threading onto the ear wire. That's where we need to pay attention to front and back. So in this case, we're okay. The way these are sitting on the ear wire is kind of sideways. And this is also where we could come in and twist our ear wire if we wanted to change the way this hangs. If you do that with this one, you would want to make sure that you twist it so that your charm will be facing forward. There you go. Although in this case, this charm is hung on a jump ring. So if you mess that up, potato bugs, no, different animal, Debbie. No, you cannot use the magic. Oh, yes, you could use the beadsmith. Beadsmith has a magical crimper too. I know that Softflex does. I think you really need to make sure that you're using the recommended crimp tubes that they recommend with those crimping pliers. Our crimp tubes are ever so slightly bigger than the ones that that Softflex sells with their magical crimper, and they don't work as well. So if I was going to use a magical crimping pair pliers, and the ones I have are from Softflex, I would make sure I had their crimp tubes to work with them because they're made to work together. All right, so here's our little sea star version. I love it. Do we have time, guys, for a fall themed one? I hope so. I want to get some of this stuff out of the way. Okay, so again with the beads, I just went into my little drawer of size 6 seed beads and pulled out some that I thought would look nice as a fall palette. And then I thought that, and again, they're all size 6. I thought that gold and copper spacers would work well for a fall theme. And I'm going to use, I have like a red, I have an orange, kind of a goldenrod color, and I have a deep red, the wire. I think the deep red wire is going to be nice. Oh, there you go, Debbie. Yeah, it's probably a Softflex magical crimper, but you never know. Beadsmith makes a lot of their own tools as well. They may have a similar thing. So let's see. Let's work with the head pin to figure out. Well, no, I'm not going to work with. I was going to say I need to figure out my pattern because this is a different bunch of beads, right? But I don't think I need to do that. I think I'm just going to go with kind of what we did. I'm going to go with the same number of beads as the larger one. I do like this slightly shorter version. You can see we were talking about how at the beginning, how this design, the original design, hangs about 3 inches. This shorter one where I eliminated one repetition of seed bead and spacer beads on each side. So this one's hanging about 2.5 inches. And I do like that, but I also love the longer ones here. So I'm going to stick with the more beads. That's articulate. I'm going to stick with the original number of beads for this one. And I am going to stay with kind of that ombre idea. So I have some crimp tubes out, but they're silver. And I think that we should use a different color for this one. So maybe some copper ones. I do often, people have mixed feelings about mixed metals. I love to mix metals. I will mix silvers and golds together if it suits the flavor of what I'm doing. I will mix copper and gold a lot if I'm doing something kind of fallish. So I have no objection to mixing metals most of the time. And with this one, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to go with the flattening instead of the crimping pliers. And also it's good, we have people that have come in later, so it's good to just demonstrate that. An alternate way of crimping, instead of using the traditional crimping pliers, just flatten it with chain nose pliers and check it to make sure it's all secure. And this little charm that I'm going to use for this one is our little oak leaf charm, and it is an opposed loop charm, so I don't need the jump ring for this one. And my pattern is going to be the 3mm disc bead and then a copper daisy spacer and then the seed bead. And this should go quick because we've done this this is our third time today, right? So should be able to put it together pretty quickly. I'm going with 2 of my lightest seed beads, and I'm going to go with 3 of the medium colors. I think. We'll see how it looks. They're being elusive. Sometimes when you're stringing like this, the beads will be cooperative and they just jump onto your beading wire. And sometimes they're like slippery little fish. All right, now I'm down to the bottom. I've got did 2 of the light ones, 3 of the medium ones, and 2 of the red ones. And it is time to put on my, okay. I'm going to throw in an extra. On the other 2, I put on a disc spacer and then the charm and then another disc spacer. But in this case, because those disc spacers are gold and the daisy spacer's copper, and then the charm is gold, I'm going to throw in that extra little copper element to keep that alternating the metal finishes, the mixed metal thing. And then I just need to repeat that whole thing on the other side. I'm kind of moving. My stringing is kind of going all over the place. I'm like moving all over the mat today. Silence while we focus. Debbie says she loves the colors and designs. Debbie, I'm really liking this this fall version. I'm not one of those people who likes to rush fall, but fall palettes are kind of my go-to, so it's a little hard. But as someone I know said recently, it's still margarita season. It is not pumpkin spice season yet. So, but still, I'm liking this this fall variation. So, 3 of the lighter ones. And finishing with 2 of the very lightest ones. This is a good place. Whoops, let's put my last sequence of spacers on there. And then I'll check my, I will check my pattern, make sure I've got everything right. And even with checking it, I still have certainly finished something off. I think I've checked it to make sure everything's good, finish it off, and then found the mistake in the pattern. Okay, it was good, so I added my crimp tube. And I am going, when I'm coming back through the crimp tube, I am going through just a couple of the spacers. You don't need to go way down in there. It is good when you're stringing, if you can go back through a few of the beads to just kind of add a little security to that crimped area. But in this case, these are very light designs, so the crimp by itself without all that extra passing through the beads should be plenty to make it secure. I am making an effort too to make sure that my loops on both sides are pretty much the same. I don't want them to, I like consistency and symmetry, so I want the loops to match. And I'm just using the chain nose pliers to flatten that crimp. And then that little tiny tail, I'm just manipulating it so it tucks down into that next bead. Nice. And then the last thing I want to do is just choose some ear wires. I have some with copper. Did I pull out? I think I set up. I did. I'm going to throw a link to our ear wires into the comments, because if you're not familiar with the wide array of ear wires that we make, and that we make them in-house, it's a fun thing to look at, because there's a lot of nice, what we call embellished or assembled ear wires that have different little accent beads on them. So it's fun to look at our ear wire page. You might be surprised by all the crazy, crazy things in there. So I actually think I like the gold ear wire with this. Kind of brings it, the gold charm down at the bottom. I think that it brings that up nicely. So if you flatten the crimp, if you flatten your crimp tube, then the crimp cover won't fit over that. So you can't use, if you want to use a crimp cover, you need to use the traditional crimp. You need to crimp them with the crimping pliers, and then the crimp cover will fit over it. If you flatten them, it's not going to fit. There's not enough space inside for it to close down over the crimp tube. Yay. I was really dreaming of these kind of these two ideas with the ombre seed bead pattern and the sea theme and the fall colors. So I enjoyed this, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it too. Switch. Thank you for joining me. Always fun. Elise is asking if we make ear wires for sensitive ears. Elise, we do carry, we make a wide range of niobium ear wires, and niobium ear wires are hypoallergenic and should be safe for anybody with sensitive ears. So if you follow that link that I just put in the comments for ear wires, look for the niobium category. And then, of course, you need to find a retail source, but I'm going to throw our store locator link in as well, because it's always good for you guys to have that so you can find the retail sources for all of our products, because we are a wholesale manufacturer. So we sell directly to retail suppliers. So you should be able to find them. If you were to do a web search in your browser for TierraCast niobium ear wires, a lot of retail sources should pop up for you because they're very popular. A lot of our customers carry them. So, all right. I am not going to do a Facebook Live next week, or I say Facebook Live, but we're really streaming to YouTube Live these days as well. So I'm not going to do a live stream demo next week because we have a product launch coming up, and I'm going to be super busy with that over the next 2 weeks. So no live stream next week, possibly the week after that, but you'll just have to watch for an event announcement. And thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you soon. Have a wonderful week and be well and make wonderful things. See you next time.